I stood in my penthouse office atop the Imperial Grand Hotel, holding the embossed wedding invitation that had just been delivered. My stepsister Vanessa's big day to be held at my flagship property, though of course they had no idea I owned it. The Imperial Grand? My stepmother Janet's voice dripped condescension through the phone. Oh, Katherine dear, you can't possibly afford to attend as a guest. The rooms alone are $1,200 a night. I looked out my window at the sprawling luxury hotel complex below, remembering how Janet had forced me to work as a housekeeper here during high school. To learn the value of real work, she'd said. Instead, I'd learned how to build a hospitality empire. I'm family, I replied quietly. Shouldn't I be at my stepsister's wedding? Janet's laugh was sharp. Family? Please. The daughter of your father's first marriage, who chose to be a hotel maid instead of going to college. What would our guests think? What would they think indeed? That the woman they'd mocked for working in hotels now owned the largest luxury hospitality chain in the country? That their lavish wedding venue was actually my property? Although, Janet's voice took on a calculating tone. We are short a few servers for the reception. If you'd like to work the event, I'm sure the catering company would hire you. It would be appropriate given your experience. My fingers tightened around the invitation. 10 years of building my company in secret, using my mother's maiden name Walker instead of my father's name. 10 years of letting them think I was still just a hotel worker, too ashamed to tell them about my menial job. You want me to serve at my own sister's wedding? Stepsister, Janet corrected. And yes, it's perfect. You already know the hotel and this way you can attend without embarrassing us. I'll even pay you myself, minimum wage of course. I glanced at the latest Forbes article framed on my wall. Elizabeth Walker, how this mysterious CEO built $1 billion hotel empire. The photo showed only my silhouette, my face turned away from the camera. I'd always kept my identity private, using a series of representatives for public appearances. Fine, I said finally. I'll work the wedding. Wonderful. The uniform is black pants and white shirt. And Katherine? Do you try to be professional? No bothering the real guests. I hung up and pressed the intercom. James? Please come to my office. My hotel manager appeared promptly, looking concerned. Is everything all right, Ms. Walker? Remember that wedding booking next weekend? The Morrison party. Of course. They've been quite demanding. He cleared his throat diplomatically. I'll be working it. As a server. James's eyebrows shot up. Ma'am. They're my family, though they don't know about my success. They think I'm still the housekeeper they remember from 10 years ago. Understanding dawned on his face. The ones who kicked me out at 18 when I chose hospitality over their precious country club lifestyle? Yes. I had told James the story years ago, over drinks after signing the deal that made the Imperial Grand my first hotel purchase. How my father had remarried when I was 10, bringing Janet and Vanessa into our lives. How they'd systematically erased every trace of my mother from the house. How they'd forced me to work as a housekeeper to learn my place. But I had learned something else instead. I learned how hotels worked from the ground up. How to spot inefficiencies, how to improve service, how to make guests feel special. By 18 I had a business plan. By 25 I owned my first hotel. Now at 32 I controlled a chain of luxury properties around the world. And my family still thought I was a failure. Should I inform the staff? James asked. No. Let them treat me like any other server. But I want our best people working this event. Every detail must be perfect. Even though they've been difficult? I smiled. Especially because they've been difficult. I want them to experience exactly what the Imperial Grand can deliver. When they find out who really owns it, I want them to understand exactly what they've been taking for granted. The week before the wedding was a parade of entitled demands from Janet and Vanessa. They wanted to change the ballroom layout 3 times. They demanded custom menu items not offered by our chef. They complained about everything from the thread count of the sheets to the temperature of the pool. James kept me updated on every demanding phone call, every imperious email. I approved each ridiculous request, ensuring they received service beyond their wildest expectations. The bride's mother called again. He reported the day before the wedding. She wants to speak to the owner about upgrading their suites for free. What did you tell her? that the owner is unavailable but will personally ensure their stay exceeds expectations. I smiled. And their current room charges? Almost $50,000, not including the wedding costs. They seem to think they'll negotiate it down after the fact. Perfect. The morning of the wedding, I arrived early through the staff entrance, dressed in the required black and white uniform. The catering manager, who'd been briefed to treat me like any other server, assigned me to handle the bridal suite. "Good luck," she whispered. "They're being particularly demanding this morning." I knocked on the suite door, pushing my cart of champagne and breakfast pastries. Janet opened it, already dressed in her mother-of-the-bride designer gown. "Finally. We've been waiting." She stopped, recognition dawning. "Katherine, you actually came as a server." "As requested," I replied professionally. "Where would you like the champagne?" Vanessa appeared from the bedroom, her wedding dress a froth of expensive lace. "Oh my God, is that really you? This is too perfect. Wait until everyone sees you serving drinks at my wedding." I began setting up the champagne service, using the skills I'd learned working high-end events. Skills that had helped me understand what true luxury service meant. "Remember when you said you were going to work in hospitality?" Vanessa laughed, watching me pour perfectly chilled Dom Perignon into crystal flutes. "Looks like you really achieved your dreams, huh?" If she only knew that I'd personally selected these champagne flutes, that I'd designed the crystal pattern myself for my hotel chain. "Tell me," Janet smirked, accepting a glass, "do you still think choosing hotels over college was the right decision? Look at Vanessa. Marrying a surgeon, having her dream wedding at the Imperial Grand. And you're serving her drinks." I straightened my server's vest, thinking about the ownership papers in my office upstairs. "We all make our choices." "Speaking of choices," Vanessa added, "I heard you tried to come as a guest. Can you imagine? As if you could afford this place." "It's certainly exclusive," I agreed mildly, arranging pastries on a silver tray. "The owner is apparently some mysterious billionaire," Janet boasted. "Very selective about clientele. We had to pull strings just to book it." I thought about the strings they'd actually pulled, namely, claiming a non-existent friendship with the owner to try to get free upgrades. "Will the owner be at the wedding?" Vanessa asked eagerly. "I heard no one knows what she looks like." "I'm sure she wouldn't miss it," I replied, hiding my smile. The wedding ceremony went exactly as planned, which meant I spent it following Janet's increasingly ridiculous demands while dressed as a server. "Fetch more flowers. Adjust the lighting. Make sure the air conditioning wasn't too cold or too warm." "Katherine," she hissed as guests were being seated. "You're not holding that tray properly. Don't embarrass us in front of our friends." I bit back a smile, knowing I had personally trained our staff on the precise angle for carrying ceremonial champagne trays. But I adjusted my grip anyway, playing my role perfectly. My father arrived last, looking distinguished in his tuxedo. He barely glanced at me as I offered him champagne, though I saw a flicker of something, embarrassment? Regret? Cross his face. "Sir," I said professionally, "welcome to the Imperial Grand." He nodded stiffly and turned away. The last time we'd really spoken was the day I'd left home, when he told me I was throwing my life away by choosing hospitality over law school. The ceremony itself was predictably over the top. Vanessa had demanded white doves, which my staff had accommodated despite my strict no-live birds policy. She'd insisted on imported flowers that cost more than most people's monthly salary. The string quartet was flown in from Vienna. I watched from my position by the champagne station, calculating the mounting bill in my head. They had no idea that every complimentary upgrade they demanded was being carefully added to their final invoice. During the reception, I continued playing my part, serving drinks and taking their casual abuse with professional courtesy. Janet made sure to point me out to every guest, gleefully explaining how her failure of a stepdaughter had found her level in life. "Can you believe she chose this over college?" I overheard her telling her country club friends. "But I suppose some people just aren't meant for success." Right on schedule, at the height of the reception, James clinked his glass for attention. Time for the moment I'd been planning for weeks. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "we have a very special guest with us tonight. The Imperial Grand's owner and CEO has chosen to grace us with her presence." The room buzzed with excitement. The mysterious Elizabeth Walker, making a rare public appearance. Janet practically preened, clearly expecting to be praised for attracting such an important person to her daughter's wedding. In fact, James continued, smiling slightly, she's been here all along. I stepped forward, removing my server's bow tie. Katherine. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. What are you doing? Actually, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom, it's Elizabeth Katherine Walker. Named after my mother, Elizabeth Walker Morrison. The same mother whose inheritance you tried to hide from me, Janet. Janet's face went from red to white to gray. That's impossible. Is it? I nodded to James, who pressed a button. The ballroom screens lit up with my company's portfolio. Billions in assets, properties around the world, and my full biography as founder and CEO. You see, I continued, enjoying the shocked faces around me, when you forced me to work as a housekeeper here, you taught me something valuable. Not the lesson about knowing my place that you intended, but something far more important: how to build a world-class hotel from the ground up. My father stood frozen, staring at the screens. But you were just a maid. I started as a housekeeper, yes. Then became a concierge, then manager, then owner. That inheritance from my mother that you helped Janet hide? I found it anyway. It was enough to buy my first property, this one actually. The same hotel where you made me work as punishment for not fitting into your perfect family. Vanessa was practically hyperventilating. All those demands we made. The upgrades. The custom menu. Oh yes, I smiled. Every single complimentary addition you insisted on has been carefully noted. James, please provide them with the final bill. James stepped forward, handing Janet a thick envelope. She opened it with trembling fingers, then nearly fainted. This is impossible. Nearly $300,000. Actually, it's quite reasonable for what you demanded. Though I did add a special surcharge for every time you snapped your fingers at my staff. I find rude behavior particularly offensive in my establishments. The wedding guests were openly staring now, phones out, undoubtedly sharing the drama on social media. The mysterious hotel magnate Elizabeth Walker, revealed at her own stepsister's wedding? The story would be everywhere by morning. You can't do this, Janet sputtered. We're family. Family. I raised an eyebrow. Like when you hid my mother's inheritance documents. Or when you forced me to work as a maid while sending Vanessa to private school. That kind of family. My father finally found his voice. Katherine, please. We can discuss this privately. Oh, now you want to talk? After 10 years of pretending I didn't exist because I chose hospitality over law school. I turned to address the gathered guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the rest of your evening. The Imperial Grand staff will ensure every detail is perfect. After all, I trained them myself. Wait. Vanessa called as I turned to leave. How will we pay for all this? I paused at the door. You know, when I was working as a housekeeper here, you told me something I never forgot. You said I needed to learn the value of money. I smiled. Consider this your lesson. The aftermath was exactly what I'd expected. Janet and Vanessa tried to dispute the charges, only to find every extra service had been carefully documented with their signatures. They attempted to claim the owner had misled them, until my lawyers provided recordings of every conversation where they demanded special treatment. My father showed up at my office the next day, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Why didn't you tell us? He asked quietly. Would you have believed me? Or would you have tried to take control like you did with Mom's inheritance? He flinched. I was wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. I looked out my window at my hotel empire. But I should thank you actually. You taught me something valuable. Success is the best revenge. The story made headlines for weeks. My company's value soared as the dramatic revelation went viral. Janet and Vanessa found themselves shunned by their country club friends, who were suddenly eager to curry favor with the hotel magnate they'd mocked. I received a letter from Vanessa a month later, begging for help with the wedding bills. I had my assistant return it with a single note. Perhaps you should try working as a housekeeper. I hear it's excellent career training. The Imperial Grand became known for more than just luxury after that. It became famous as the hotel where the owner had served drinks at her own stepsister's wedding, just to teach her family a lesson about humility. I kept the server's uniform, framed in my office next to my first housekeeper's name tag and the Forbes cover declaring me one of the youngest hospitality billionaires in the world. A reminder that success doesn't always wear designer labels. Sometimes it wears a bow tie and carries a champagne tray. Janet and Vanessa had to sell their country club membership to pay the wedding bills. They now live in a modest condo, their social status devastated. Sometimes they try to name-drop their connection to me, only to have people remember the viral story of how they treated their billionaire stepsister like a servant. My father made attempts at reconciliation, but I kept him at arm's length. Trust, like a luxury hotel's reputation once damaged, is hard to repair. Instead, I focused on expanding my empire, always remembering to treat my staff with the respect I'd been denied. Every new employee at the Imperial Grand chain learns my story during training. Not just the success but the humble beginnings. The housekeeper who became a CEO. And in every hotel there's one strict policy. Any guest who snaps their fingers at the staff gets an automatic surcharge added to their bill. I call it the Janet tax. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it just needs to be served with perfect professional courtesy, like a perfectly chilled glass of champagne on a silver tray at your stepsister's wedding. After all, I learned from the best. Even if they didn't mean to teach me.